And just like to ask Dr. Bailey to come up again. I know just is probably thankful for the opportunity to sit down, but we'd like at this time to officially dedicate this this chair, and this is the Joseph A. Bailey II, M.D., Endowed Chair in American Communities, and it's part of the College of Arts and Letters at California State University of Los Angeles. And again, I'd like to thank you, Dr. Bailey, and really personally thank you for your wonderful gift that is really helping a huge number of students and my colleague faculty as well. So thank you very much. Anyway, we have two gifts, actually. We have a portrait of Dr. Bailey that will hang in the conference room of the Integrated Humanities Center in honor of the chair. And we have a gift for you to remember us by. And you'll have your own chair for your home. Your endowed chair here at Cal State. Thank you very much.
It's nice to get it before you die. I want to thank Dr. Rosser and Kyle for recognizing Colette, because Colette is the reason that all of us are here today. Colette asked me to give you the short version of my purpose in life, and I'll do that, but I would like to give you some background first, and then conclude on what I've learned about how to treat black people with respect to humanity and how not to treat them. If you imagine your selfhood as being like a skyscraper building, both of them have an underground foundation and a base upon which that foundation rests, and then there's an above ground foundation, and then there's the visible structure that you can see, everyone can see. My focus is on the underground foundation and the foundational base. In other words, your philosophy of life. This came into focus for me when my sister Jocelyn gave me some yoga books that were written about 100 years ago that had preserved ancient African philosophy. And I had never heard of this. I've had 13 years of training after college, and I'd never heard anything. In fact, the only thing I knew about African history was in the 4th grade. There was one picture of little black Sambo running around the tree, and that was my black history. But in studying this, they were honoring Hermes Trismegistus, who is a black Egyptian of around 5500 BC. It was at this time that African tradition began to take form and take its final form. The African tradition had at its base God and love. They considered God and love the same. Now, love for Africans is nothing like what the Greeks deal with love when they talk about degrees of love and that love is an emotion. Africans said this has no place, absolutely no place, because they're in two entirely separate worlds. Out of love, sprang what is called Ma'at, M-A-A-T. Ma'at means love in action. If you can imagine a white light that's passed through a prism, on the other side you will get rays. Now if that white light is love, the rays that you get will also be love, but in various kinds of ways. For example, Africans attributed righteousness to the color orange, and justice to the color green, and so forth, until they had all of the virtues. Now, when you collected all of those virtues together, you had what is called Ma'at. Now, the basis of African tradition came from the law of sympathy. The Africans believed that there's one universal high God, and this was at least 5500 BC, who created different planes of existence. One of those planes was the spirit world, and another was the humans, and another was animals, and another was plants and non-biological life. They said that because God made all of these things, they were all related. And in addition to that, the substance of God went through all of these things. To help in understanding the substance, the heart, the blood that comes out of my heart goes down to all of my digits. Even though my digits are different and they do different things, they are all supplied by the same blood, which is the same concept of God being in all of God's creation. These were the factors that went into establishing African tradition. Now they figured that once they had come up with this, it would last and it would be true forever, and therefore there was no point in changing. For this reason, black people are a very traditional people. That's very important to understand if you were going to do any research. Meanwhile, at the end of the establishment of the African tradition, about 5,000 years later, the ancient Greeks who were just beginning to get started in their culture would come over to Africa to study. At least 2/3 of all Greek scholars studied in Africa. And they include all of the academic household names that you're familiar with. One of these people was Pythagoras. Now, Pythagoras studied in Africa for 23 years. And when he came back to Greece, he made a fundamental change. He said, whereas Africans had said that God is the measure of all things, Pythagoras taught that man is the measure of all things, which means that you go within yourself, your feelings and your thoughts, to come up with what you think to be right. Now this concept spread throughout the Western world. It was revitalized during the Renaissance. And it can be seen in a host of self-related words that came in at that time. The man-centeredness. And some of these words were individualism and individualist, and then the 7 H words. Humanitarian, humanism, humanist, humane, humanities, and humanity. All of these words, because they deal with human, and note that they deal with human in their beginning, are man-centered, are self-centered. Now this is the same thing that happened from what Pythagoras said, that man is the measure of all things. As a result of this, there have been 2 tracts related to humanity. The one track is called the psychical feelings that has been used in the Western world. Two words that help demonstrate what psychical feelings are. One of them is sympathy and the other is empathy. In sympathy, you're feeling sorry that someone is having pain. With empathy, you're feeling with somebody. But note that at no time is there a connection between the people involved. By contrast, Africans believe in spiritual feelings. Now, to help in understanding that, they said that a human soul is the image of God, and that there's a system of feelings. One aspect of those system of feelings is spiritual feelings, and they are next to the soul. Then next to spiritual feelings are psychical feelings. And next to psychical feelings are physical feelings, which is in contact with the world. Now, Africans went solely with spiritual feelings. The one word that best characterizes spiritual feelings is compassion. This means that you feel another person's pain and it bothers you so much that you want to do something about it. Here you are intimately connected because you don't know where that person's pain ends and your pain begins. The psychical feelings of the Western world has been carried on down into my work with inner city youth and some tough guys has indicated to me that they are disconnected from psychical feelings and spiritual feelings. The thing that I've also found is that black people or black youth that I have been dealing with cannot in any way relate to psychical feelings. You cannot come to them with psychical feelings, but you can begin to establish a relationship with them through spiritual feelings. However, you have to prove yourself that that's who you are before they will accept you, and that takes a long time. As a result, my purpose in life is to contribute to three things. One is to bring back the philosophy of ancient Africa to young people, young black people. Second is to give black people back their history, their stolen history. And I believe that the stealing of this history is one of the main things that has helped to get struggling youth off track and stay off track. And this came about as a result of the brainwashing that they had during slavery. The third thing is to assist in communication. Now, I have no prejudice. I think it's a ridiculous concept for anybody to think that they're better than anybody. I mean, I just can't conceive of that. And so I work with anybody that needs help. I mean, that's what I do as a physician. My first book, Matthew, can you get the book on dwarfs over there? Just bring all of them. My first book was on dwarfisms. And there was a miscommunication between physicians and dwarfs. Physicians thought that they should operate on dwarfs and make them in their own image, make them in the physician's image. And that doesn't work because these people are different. And you just can't use your standards on somebody else and expect them to work, because there are different values, and in the case of dwarfs, there's different tissue that you're dealing with. So this book I'm very proud of. It changed the world literature, and as a result, operations all over the world have been based upon what has come out of this particular book. There are miscommunications between physicians and attorneys, and to help Matthew, there's some more. And to help overcome some of the differences, I wrote a medical legal dictionary. There's not another one in the world. But this talks about the stories of words that physicians and attorneys use in common and the different meanings that they have. Now this one should have particular interest to all of you here, because this is largely done by Elizabeth Vial, professor here in Cal State. I wrote a 30-page book, and she took that 30 pages and made 200 and some pages. and it just came out, 250 pages. And this is about preparing to prepare. And it's fundamental things that all children need to learn before they get ready to go to school. Things like self-love and good health and that sort of thing. It's a teacher's guide, and I think that she did a wonderful job. She also inspired me to write a book entitled I Am Somebody, and this has been written in Chinese by Joanna Zhao, and the thing that I'm most proud of is the cartoons in here are mine. So I am an internationally published cartoonist. That feels very good. This book, Echoes of Ancient African Values, this is my baby. And I've spent so much time on this book because I could find no information of substance that I needed, and it was a marathon to try to pull all of this information together. I could not have done it had I not been in medicine and been a medical detective, and that's entirely different from being a scholar. You have to dig and piece together things, so it will be coming out maybe in a couple of months, and it's twice the size, by the way. This one is on rising above poverty, and applies to anybody in the inner city. What are just some of the fundamentals that you need to rise above poverty? And I had first-hand experience of this because I grew up in the Depression, and we just didn't have any money. My mother made 50 cents a day, and she was a master at maneuvering us out of poverty. We didn't think we were poor. We never thought we were poor, but we didn't have any money. Here's another one on common sense. And this is a book on African American history. I named it after my dad because he was the one that got me started on this. This is a book that I'm now working on. It's becoming a champion somebody. And incidentally, I got an email from, I think, Taiwan asking me for this book. And incidentally, if any of you want to follow up on my works, you can do it through jabLifeSkills.com, JABLifeskills.com. And then this is another one on handling bad emotions. It's bad emotions from anybody who has bad emotions. So another book is on good character, and again, this is for anybody. I mean, it's not just Black Americans, as none of these books are. It's for everybody. I have focused on Black Americans in general because I understand that they have more problems than anybody else, and it's because of having been brainwashed in slavery, and then these things culturally transmitted. They don't have the same problems. You can't put them at the starting gate and expect them to run the same race because they have other problems. And until you understand that about struggling Black Americans, you will continue to have doubts about what they can do and who they are. But usually these kids are brilliant, and I've been very impressed at the intelligence, and the reason I think they're so intelligent is because they have to use both sides of their brain in order to function. I appreciate all of you being here today, and I've never felt so wonderful as I do now. And I appreciate the work that you're doing and helping to create and enhance and maintain harmony. And I'm very happy to be able to make a contribution that makes your life a little bit easier. Thank you.